Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the MAGE RTA from COILART. So real quick, I'll go over what's in the package. It's just your typical kind of stuff: extra glass, there's a vape band, Allen key, and there's different colored O-rings for you to kind of customize the look. As you can see, I have the blue on here now. It comes with the clear pre-installed in there. Okay, let's move on from that and talk a little bit about the tank itself. Like it says on the package, 24 millimeter, 3.5 milliliter capacity. And basically, I sort of see this as a moonshot, but much better. So almost everything about this is better than the moonshot. They end up kind of looking similar on the outside, but on the inside it functions very differently. As you can see, it's a velocity style deck, and like I talked about in my last video, this tank and that tank, the engine, both have a feature that I really like, and that is on the engine, the chimney section would rotate with it. On this one, the entire build section rotates freely. And that really helps out, and I'll show you exactly why later on when we go on to wicking. So this build deck is big enough to hold quite a few different builds, but I tend to prefer the smaller kind of builds in this. The air holes aren't super big. Build deck is not massive, but it's a good size. And it's flexible enough to do quite a few different builds. So let's go on and zoom up close and go on to dry firing. Alright, that looks okay. I forgot to mention that this is a stainless steel twisted fused Clapton build, so it's 3 pieces of 32 gauge twisted together with 40 gauge around it, and 3 millimeter A-wraps. I'm going to be using cotton for this, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. Okay, so now that you've got the wicks in there, I tend to cut it right at the edge of the base there. So right about here. Now I'm going to brush it out just a little bit and cut it again. At this point, it's helpful to go on and wet it down before you push it into its final position. Now at this point, you just want to push it down into the general area of these little, where the channels would be on something like the Griffin. Now you don't have to worry about getting it in its final shape, you just want to get it in there so that you can get the outer chimney section on. And now, unlike the moonshot, didn't have to put the chimney onto fire and then disassemble it again. It's just a straight assembly from here. So as you can see, there's 2 indentations here, one here and one there. And those line up with the outside edge of the airflow. So you just line those up and screw the chimney into place. And at this point, this is why I prefer to use cotton, and I'll explain what I mean. If you were to just assemble the tank like this, as it is right now, it would leak an entire juice, an entire tank worth of juice just out the air holes. And that's because there's a big gap right here. I don't know if you can see that there's light coming in from the juice hole there, and it would just pour through there. So one of the things that we want to do is, using the light shining at the air hole as kind of a guide, go around with the tweezers and just move the cotton up and kind of block that air. You don't want to pack it in there, you just want to make sure that it's completely blocked. And you can kind of take a look at these and make sure that there's no big gaps there. Now, the reason why I prefer cotton for this setup over rayon is cotton plumps up a lot more when you put juice on it than rayon does. Rayon barely has any expansion, so that makes it a little bit more difficult and more tricky to get it to wick without leaking. It can be done, I've done it before, but overall, cotton is just much easier. There's no huge benefit to using rayon in this setup, so for me, I'm just going to go with cotton because it's easier. And now we're ready to assemble it. And I usually take it off of the base for this because I need to kind of use some tension to get it tightened up all the way. Now I'm just trying to get it tightened as much as I possibly can. One thing I want to note really quick, this is tightened down all the way, but I can still spin this glass, which tells me that these O-rings aren't making a totally sealed connection there. It would have been nice if the O-rings made the glass fit a little bit more snug, because that tells me that I could get a little bit of seeping around the edge as juice leaks out from that just barely not snug enough fit. So it's not like the glass is rattling around, but I can move it. So I wish it was just a little bit tighter. Also wanted to point out while I have it out here, as you can see, this O-ring is crumbling there. And I've actually found pieces of that O-ring in the juice. So this O-ring falls apart very easily. I haven't had this tank for that long. It shouldn't be crumbling like that. I could go on and replace it, but it's not like it has a ton of replacements, so I'm going to keep on using it until it breaks. And now we're kind of counting on that plumped up cotton to keep it from just pouring juice through these holes. And this brings me to this top cap, which is my big issue with this tank. I hate this top cap. It's an entire, just one piece of solid Delrin. So the threads inside are made out of Delrin as well, and they thread in here to these threads. And so you're relying on this Delrin cap for both the drip tip and to make the seal of the top cap. And that's fine, but these threads are plastic, so they're very easy to cross thread. And in addition to that, you want to be very careful that you don't cross thread it. But as you're screwing it down and it makes that seal, it has a tendency to get stuck there. So I tend to not screw it in all the way so that I'll be able to get it back off later. But if you cross thread it or you tighten it down too hard, you're going to get what has happened to me. If you can take a look at just the edge of this, those are plier marks that I've had to use pliers to get this top cap off. So that's the problem with this tank, is this top cap. I wish that it had stainless steel threads on the inside so that it was steel on steel instead of Delrin on steel. And that they just made it a little bit easier to get a hold of. Add a little bit of knurling or something, especially if you've been using it and there's just a slight residue of juice on the drip tip. It can be extremely hard to get this off, and you'll end up either getting it off or having to take pliers to it, or this top section starts coming off, which is what you don't want. That you want the top cap, but not this upper section to come off. So overall, really great features on this tank. I love that the deck rotates as I'm screwing this in. It keeps the cotton from getting disturbed. And I like building on it. It's much easier than a lot of other tanks, but that top cap is the problem with this tank. So I think we're going to go ahead and give it a try. Have it in power mode right now. Let's try it out. That right there is this tank's saving grace. I love the flavor and the performance of this tank. It's a straight up flavor atty, no doubt about it. This thing is for flavor, and that's just the bottom line. You can get pretty good sized clouds out of it, but this thing is for flavor, and that flavor really saves this tank for me. If the flavor wasn't at the level that it's at, I probably wouldn't use it because of that top cap, but because that flavor is so good, it's enough for me to look past the annoying top cap issues. The ease of building, ease of use, besides the top cap, and the flavor and performance on this easily put it towards the top of RTAs right now for me. So in the last video, I showed you the engine. I love the engine, and it's sort of the same thing with this. I really like this tank a lot. The flavor is absolutely top notch, and so that sort of makes it in my top 3 RTAs right now. And we'll talk about the third one in a future video. But I have nothing bad to say about the way that this performs at all. Only positive things on the flavor and performance. Yeah, truly top notch on the flavor. It's right up there with the engine, and it just performs spectacularly. It's much easier to build and wick and all that kind of stuff than the Moonshot. It has fairly similar performance, but I would say that this one is actually better on the flavor. And to me, this is what the Moonshot should have been. So super easy to build on, and that wicking was very easy. I just kind of stuff it in there, put the chimney on, and then make sure that it's blocking the holes, and that's it, and it kind of takes care of the rest. It wicks at exactly the speed that I want it to, which for me, I like for it to wick very fast and to be very heavy on the flavor. So I could slow down the wicking quite a bit if I really pack that cotton up against those holes, but for me, exactly how it is, absolutely perfect. If you can get past that top cap, I recommend this tank. It's not a deal breaker for me. I still use this tank on a daily basis. It's just one of those things that, you know, no tank is perfect, so every tank has its own little issues. And for me, it's that top cap. That'll bring us to the end of this video about the MAGE RTA from COILART. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below or send me an email. Thanks.